If you want to quit smoking and you're here learning how to quit smoking, this is rule number 4. Tip number 4, rule number 4. Call it whatever you want. This is how I did it. So we're on rule number 4. Rule number 4, after you've identified your triggers, you've got to figure out what you can do at that time. What can you do with the time? Because you got to substitute it. You've got to take yourself out of those situations. For me, smoke right after dinner was a huge trigger for me. Right after dinner, I wouldn't even leave the dinner table. My dad never left the dinner table. He'd use he'd use his dinner plate as the ashtray, just doot, doot, doot. Crazy. But that's the environment I grew up in. And so, of course, I would get done eating. I'd push my plate away, light up a cigarette, sit right there and eat, even if the kids are still eating, So terrible. But if I know that about myself, if I know that right after I get done eating, one of the triggers for me is sitting right there at the table after a good meal, all I want to do is smoke up or light up. Now, instead, I committed to getting right up out of my seat, done eating, get right up and do the dishes. Do you know how hard it is to smoke when your hands are in hot soapy dishwater? It's very hard. I mean, commit to having the cleanest kitchen rather than sitting there and putting yourself in the boredom and lighting up a cigarette. So instead of sitting there waiting to have a cigarette, get up and get busy. Start doing something. The other thing I did, which was very challenging for me, and even today what would be super challenging for me, is I slept in. I slept a lot, actually. I really was like, you know what? If there's nothing left to do or whatever, I mean, it's better to go to bed than to sit there and just to fight the craving, right? But sleeping in was a huge strategy of mine. At the time that I quit smoking, I was in the Marine Corps. And you can never be late in the Marine Corps. Talk about frowned upon. Don't do it. But so let's say it took me 30 minutes to get ready, to put my uniform on, to shower, to shave, all that. It took me 30 minutes. I would normally get up an hour and a half prior to having to be to work, which means I had 30, 40 minutes, an hour even, before I even had to start getting ready. Once I started to figure out that it was a huge trigger for me, that time from the time I got out of bed to the time I got to work, that was a huge trigger for me. I would smoke 2, 3, 4, 5 cigarettes in the time that I woke up by the time I got to work. I started to sleep in, even if I couldn't sleep. I don't get out of bed. I kept my head under the covers, turned the TV on, anything. I would wait till the last minute. And I mean, I literally had to, by the time I got up, I had to jump out of bed, jump in the shower, grab my toothbrush because I didn't have time to do it separate. I'd shave in the shower, I would brush my teeth in the shower, and I'd take a shower, throw my uniform on, and out the door. I wouldn't give myself any time. I would sleep more. I would do all kinds of stuff like that. Make it so that you are busy. Don't ever catch yourself being bored. Or I didn't go to bars. I was like, I'm not going to go to bars. I'm not going to drink beer for a few weeks, a couple of months. I'm not saying you're not going to have another beer. I'm not saying you're never going to go to the bar. I'm not saying you're not going to hang out with people who smoke. You can, absolutely. Just not when you first quit. It's much easier if you avoid these triggers. So avoid them. Take a couple of months off from drinking a beer. It's not going to kill you. Trust me.